Really nice signature.
Beers Got Global is live. Well done, it works.
Is it working?
Are we on? Are we live? I think we're live. Come on, Joe, have you signed it?
I'm getting there. We've done it.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this broadcast of the Agri-Leader Circle, a discussion group with some very well-known faces from farming and some AHDB experts. The group is not about getting all the right answers, but starting the right conversations for the industry. Tonight we're here live from Rebecca Wilson's farm in Thirst in North Yorkshire. Did I pronounce that right?
South Yorkshire's better.
Yorkshire.
Tonight we'll be talking all things exports, how we open up some markets beyond our shores, and how increasing export volume and value benefit all British dairy, beef, lamb and pork levy payers, even if you don't export directly. How balancing carcass preferences from here with some selling products that's got little or no value over here abroad benefits all farmers, and what AHDB's role is in all of that. So let's get stuck in and we'll go around quickly and introduce everybody. Tell us who you are, what you do, and your social handles, all of those kind of things.
I'm Rebecca Wilson. We're here at our family farm today. Sheep and arable here on the farm, and you can find me on Instagram at Rebecca Wilson 722. And sorry, it's not more catchy.
I'm Charlie. I'm a beef, sheep and arable farmer from North Warwickshire, and you can find me on Instagram at charliefarms_.
I'm Joe Seal, so a beef and arable farmer from South Yorkshire. So you can find me on TikTok and YouTube, just at Joe Seals. Everyone's laughing at my YouTube, aren't they? Hey?
YouTube.
Charlotte.
I'm Charlotte Ashley. I am a beef and sheep farmer, soon to be dairy farmer from Cumbria, and I am Charlotte Ashley Farms on everything that will have me.
Right, Dr. Phil.
And I'm Phil Hadley, International Director with AHDB, and I'm focused on export markets for levy plates.
So remember, you can follow these guys on all normal channels, but if you're struggling with the sound or the visuals, head over to
AHDB YouTube.
Excellent, thank you, Joe. Put your comments in there. Tell us where you're watching from, whether you're a farmer or member of the public. Ask these guys all the questions you can think of, and we've got somebody monitoring that. So when I look at my phone, it's not because I'm bored; is I'm looking for the questions that'll be forwarded to me. But we thought we'll start off this evening with a little quiz all about exports, and I've got Charlotte. Have the questions for us, please.
No pressure, Charlotte. The value of GB red meat exports in 2022, is it higher or lower than £1.5 billion?
Can I just say, people need to listen in because there is a prize for the people commenting.
Yep. So put in your answers in there. And what can they win, Charlotte?
They can win
The chance that is the Agri-Leader AHDB mug, but
exclusive.
It's got exclusive.
very exclusive.
Very
Limited
exclusive. There's
edition.
only one because it's got everybody's name on that's here.
Signatures. But don't worry, I didn't sign it to keep it value. So. Question 2. So put in all of your answers. Somebody's going to win that mug.
Beef tongue in the UK is worth around £5. What do you think the value is in a supermarket in Japan? And what is the value in a high-end supermarket like Harrods in Japan?
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting vibes. It's
So
a delicacy.
Yeah, and me.
Mm-hmm.
Would you eat it?
I've had it before.
Have you?
Yeah, I've had it. When I was little, I haven't had it recently.
What's it like?
Not, you feel like it's going to be really abnormal. It is kind of just like meat.
Mm.
It
tough?
is. Or is it? No, it's not.
Very quiet.
It's not as tough. I'm thinking of like the texture of my tongue. It's not like. Easy.
So we'll go to the next question. Right, next question.
Right, stop it. I'm being serious. How many tons of offal, that is liver, heart, and pig pizzles, were exported to China in 2022? Pig pizzles.
What's that?
A pig
How many
pizzle.
tons?
How many tons of pig pizzle?
The people need to Google what a big business is.
Maybe
It
not.
depends on their history.
We were going to ask how much for a pound of pig pizzles in Pyongyang, but we couldn't find the actual figure. So yeah, just read the question.
How many tons of offal, that is liver, heart, and pig pizzles, were exported to China in 2022?
Excellent. So put in your answers in the comments. Somebody's going to win that money. But let's get on to the serious stuff. So part of this is to explore how you benefit even if you don't export. So if you can put in the comments how you think, if at all, that works, and why it is important for us to offset some of those products that haven't got any value to over there. Phil, tell us a little bit about some AHDB's role in this and what we do, just briefly, and then we'll dig a bit deeper in a minute.
Yeah, sure. We've got two key roles on behalf of levy payers. One is to work with government and industry to find, understand, and open new markets to create new opportunities. Then once we've done that, the second part of the equation is host trade shows, promote the products, bring buyers to the country to see what we do, to make sure that they understand why we use a high quality product or a premium product. Even the water offal material has a value, to demonstrate what we do, to make those commercial connections, to make the magic happen and bring those dollars home.
So, you mentioned first quarter offal there. Just tell people a little bit about what that is.
Yeah, so if you think of an animal, then clearly the meat, the carcass meat, a lot of that gets eaten in the domestic market at home. The things that are of less demand or lower demand, things like hearts, livers, kidneys, intestines, bone trims, all those byproducts we refer to as fifth quarter offal. We don't have a strong domestic demand here in the UK, but there are lots of markets where not only are they in demand, in some cases they're a premium product, a delicacy, so they actually have quite a significant value. So we're always trying to find the perfect market for all of those products, because some of the parts approach, all those parts of the carcass that add value create the greatest return per individual animal, and that value filters back through the supply chain, enables the processor to pay a strong value for the whole animal, because they have to get rid of those bits, and if they can't export them, they're often a cost to dispose of, or a low value pet food type product.
What sort of price are we talking? Like, as a value to a farmer, like me as a beef producer, what value is that going to add to?
If you take the total value of all the value of beef exports, let's say, and divide that by the number of animals we kill, it's about £250 per head. So it's not an insignificant value. Some of those products would have a value on the domestic market, but it would be far lower. So what we're trying to do is take every part of the carcass and get the highest value possible. And obviously, some of those fifth quarter material, the highest value, are far from these shores, particularly in Asia and places like West Africa.
What is it about the UK which means that we don't eat offal? Because we were just having a chat about it before, saying, "Oh gosh, we wouldn't really." Is it our mindset? Have we been almost treated to the luxury of these more expensive cuts of meat, and we think, "Oh gosh, I couldn't eat tripe or whatever." Why don't we eat them? And I'm saying that from somebody who doesn't eat it. What's the big picture?
Well, I mean, that's a great question, $1 million question, but I guess a quick straw poll then: who eats offal on a regular basis?
If I'm served it
Yeah,
for breakfast, but I probably wouldn't choose
Do you
it.
remember
Pate.
the cottage when Hugh Fairley-Whittington used to encourage everybody to eat every part of the animal? And I think that's something that it was a bit of a movement, wasn't it? And I think sadly that was the last time I've heard of something like that happening, and it probably needs to be brought back.
Because I remember when we were kids, we always used to have steak and kidney, but trying to find steak and kidney pie now.
So the only really domestically, the only products that have offal products that have reasonable demand are liver and kidneys. Then as you go down, then it becomes a bit more marginal without huge demand. And I think the answer is that we went through a generation where offal wasn't really very well regarded. Parents didn't feed it to their children, and therefore there's a generation that have grown up not having offal as a staple, not really knowing how to cook it, not being a bit scared of it perhaps. And there has been a bit of a resurgence for the nose to tail eating, which has created a bit more interest, and consumers are keen to try it if they see it on a restaurant menu or a pub menu. but they're probably not cooking it at home.
I think that'd be what scared me is cooking it. I wouldn't know what to do.
You wouldn't know what to do.
I did we do lamb boxes, and I've got a customer who came in a couple of weeks ago and asked for hearts because she wants to make like a type of jerky out of it.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. And I've said to her, "Oh, she makes. I'd want to try it." So I wouldn't know what to do with it.
I can give her a good Bilton recipe.
Amazing. I'll take it
Not
after.
have a
I'll pass it on.
Perfect. I guess so. Then coming from a farm and we're admitting we don't utilise it. Thank goodness, and this is not an intentional plug, but thank goodness somebody like the AHDB is trying to get rid of all of that product, which we're never. I mean, I've never maybe touched on this later, but I went to looking at AHDB and I did not have a clue about the breadth of markets that were being opened up by work done by the AHDB. We're not going to do it as an individual farmer or as the sheep sector or the sector or even the red meat sector. We don't have knowledge, time, inclination, skill, all of those things. And actually, it was quite eye-opener to see that at the conference.
It's with the offal again. What proportion of offal that we produce here in the UK? What proportion is used or exported?
Well, as I say, it's only liver and kidney that we eat in any volume here, but almost it goes into either other products or it gets exported. So, you know, the consumption here is pretty marginal. Really.
And is that like a fairly static
It's
consumption?
fairly
It's not
static, really. The liver and kidneys, yes. Anything else becomes a bit more sketchy, really, a bit harder to find. I mean, you don't really see a huge array of offal in major retailers where the bulk of the meat is sold. Traditional local butchers still lots of them still have an offal offer, but actually it's bought by, generally speaking, people of a certain age that have grown up with it. But then there's this next generation that, you know,
Do you think it's like what we were saying before about we were talking about American people having a taste for like corn-fed beef and not liking grass-fed beef? It's quite gamey. Do you think it's just a taste that you're used to, and that's why you're not willing to try it? It's just something a bit too different.
I think there's probably quite a few things around that. It's not culturally significant. We're not huge offal eaters. It's probably not being prepared at home when you were a youngster, so you've not grown up knowing what it tastes like or wanting to eat it necessarily. You're probably a bit reluctant or a bit scared to cook it at home because it's not quite clear what to do with it, and it can go wrong very quickly. So there's a whole range of them. You tend to gravitate to what's normal. Most people have a pretty small repertoire of products they consume and prepare at home, but maybe when you're out next and it's on the menu, maybe you try it on the menu and you realise that, you know, it's a good product.
Yeah. Is there anything that can be like, you know, the UK consumer wants speed and ease and quickness? Is there anything in like offal that can be quickly prepared and, you know, like...
Liver's a great example. It cooks really quickly, and in fact, if you cook it too far, you overcook it, it's not very good. And that's one of the veal liver, calf liver, actually is one of the products that sells at retail sale and also sells very well in restaurants because people want to try that, and if they're reluctant to cook it at home, they realise it's a premium quality product, but they're quite happy to have it in a restaurant where there's an experienced chef who can prepare it and present it at its best, and that is a product that sells reasonably well.
I'll cook for you, Joe.
Veal,
Thank you.
We'll have a meal. We'll have a
People in
meal.
microwaves.
Joe asked a question about, you said about 250 quid for beefs, and on pork and lamb, what's the added value by exporting these?
Yeah, it's about £50 a head per pig and about £35 per head.
They're not
for
insignificant.
lamb. So it's significant across the sectors, and lamb in particular. We export about 30% of our total production. Right? So think of that for a minute. 30% of land exported, right? And then from that, Europe is really strong market for us. And of those exports, about half of it is in France. So 1 of every 5 lambs land in the UK, finished in the UK, is eaten in France. That's significant.
Wow.
You know, if we didn't export market for lamb, we would be the industry or the sector would be in a difficult spot.
That is France.
No, I was just going to say, I didn't know until the other day that AHDB actually opens an office in France.
We do, yeah. So the French market is so significant for lamb sales and beef to that degree, but lamb. We have an office in France, and our French team work closely with French traders, buyers and retailers to make sure that lamb stays prominent, but also that UK lamb is prominent for French consumers. Because sells, we have a great reputation, we've been selling it out for a long time. We obviously need to keep.
So does a British lamb in France sell for a higher price than French lamb, for instance?
That's a great question, right? So every market you go to, they always try to premiumise the local product, right? So French lamb is the premium product in France, and the French of all nations are super nationalistic. So they really prioritise products from France. Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's okay.
We do.
As we prioritise products in the UK. But secondly, UK lamb is the next level in effect. So we have a great reputation, well respected. It's a really high quality product. French retailers like it, French culture like, and it goes well into food service and everything.
Joe and Charlotte, last week we asked you to go along on an inwards mission. Tell us a bit, where did you go, what did you learn, and what did you get up last week?
Well, we just got blown away, didn't we, really?
It's made me reevaluate like my life, to be honest. I'm quite lacking in every department after going around that farm.
Yeah.
So where are you?
So we were
Mount
just
St.
at
John's.
Mount St. John's near First Felixkirk. The cattle that they had on show there, and the people that were coming round to see them from the Philippines, Taiwan, Dubai, Canada, like literally, if there weren't every country near enough, it felt like had been represented there. And talking to some of the buyers, there was a certain chap from the Philippines, and they were just so wanting to buy British. I think he said to me something along the lines of, I'm going to fill my suitcase with nice expensive products and take them home, because they've got I didn't know this, but they've got Marks and Spencers in the Philippines. I didn't know.
But they still want
Really?
they
They
want
still wanted
British.
British Marks and
Yeah.
Spencers.
Yeah.
And what kind of Marks and Spencers?
He didn't specify.
We're hoping to have some meat.
hopefully
He
not.
told me an amount that you could spend to take back to the Philippines. It was a very large amount, and I think he got very close to it. So
He's got 54 kilos of luggage allowance.
Yeah.
So he was
wow.
going to buy tinned meat products. That was his principal aim, to take
No
back those
way.
products.
What did you sit and find out at this thing last week, Charlotte?
I found it exceptionally interesting, mostly just because you could educate someone about something that we take for granted, like what silage is. Even the most basic of things that we all know about and we don't even question here, they didn't understand. So it was quite refreshing to be able to, pretend that I was Phil and for even a minute and actually tell someone about something with such conviction, because I know all about it. And I, it was amazing. But yeah, they were very much blown away by the standard of the farm, which would be because it was exceptional. It was a really nice farm. But just simple things like animal behaviour, as they didn't realise. There was a fella there who said to me and Joe, we'd gone to a fence with some cattle, and it was just such a simple thing to go and see the cows. And obviously the cows had come over really nosy, and he couldn't understand how we'd managed to group these cows together for him to look at. And it was like, well, they're just nosy. The cows, that's what they do. And he'd never seen them in the natural environment or exhibit natural cow behaviours before. So he couldn't understand how we got them to stand there for him. And it was like, the cows are really nosy. So it was just a very different experience. And
it was nice to meet people of different cultures as well, weren't it? And just understand what. So they were wanting all these offal parts, and they were just like, the guy from the Philippines, again, I talked to him quite a bit, and he was like, we've increased our sales by 300%. Britain sold 300% more to the Philippines, and he says, we just want more.
Can't get enough.
Yeah, we just want the availability to get more.
Tell us a bit more what so they were here for a whole week. What else did they get up to? So, what were the whole aim of it, and which countries?
Yeah, so now the COVID bubble has been released. We've got a huge interest in inward and outward missions, for that matter. to connect our buyers with international
We'll go on an outward mission.
Yeah.
We are totally fine with that.
overseas buyers to our sellers. So we run a trade show program at the big international food fairs. But the inward mission are about selecting buyers that have, a willingness and a keenness to purchase products from here, and we bring them over and we show them what we do. We're not the cheapest producer of most things, so you have to show them everything that goes into producing the products. The heritage, the tradition, the grass, the natural environment, the sustainability, the welfare, the whole story, to get them bought in and understand why they are premium products and often more highly priced than our competitors. So we bought a group from, what did we have? We had Philippines, Canada, US,
China,
Middle East region, we had Dominican Republic. So we had a group of buyers from various countries. They came here,
USA.
the USA, yeah. They came in and we pinned it around the Yorkshire show, but around the show they visited farms, they visited processors, and they saw end-to-end the supply chain, and they were blown away by all the things we take for granted that aren't normal in other parts of the world. So what we're trying to do is reinforce the reputation and the products with integrity story, but also connect them to our buyers. So as part of that whole experience, we had an afternoon of effectively business speed dating, where representatives from all our big processor, exporter, levy payers met with them, and they effectively discussed what they're purchasing, what they're producing, and those relationships will lead to commercial business. So that's our role, is to excite overseas buyers about products from the UK, and then create the environment by which they can link directly with sellers, meat processors, but sellers of your products as farmers, to make sure that they can maximise.
So you guys are all farmers. You've all been beef and lamb farmers for a while. You knew all about this beforehand, did you?
No,
And
sure.
I'd just like to say that all them people that were on that delegation from the different countries, they're going to different countries all the time. So like I was speaking to one and he's like, yeah, we go to Germany, we come to the UK, we come to Spain, and he said some others as well, but I can't quite remember. But he said the British one is the one that they want to go to. So maybe that must be like in the office. It's like we want to go to that one.
It's funny because you think of like the Philippines, you kind of think that maybe they'd be more interested in like Australia or New Zealand because they're closer.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Well, I don't know what they import
And
from over there
idealistic
as well, but-
farming in New Zealand, I'm presuming very naively, it might actually look fairly similar to idealistic
absolutely.
farming. Countryside scenes, green grass. I'm
Very
presuming
much
they
so.
look
So
very
what is
similar.
it? Yeah, what is
So
it
what's
that
it
we're
about us?
doing
Yeah,
differently? We've got AHDB.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well done. Well done.
Thank
if you touch on New Zealand in particular, of course, New Zealand are exporting some beef as well, but actually the seasons, so our product, in terms of the production methods and so on, extensive production, there's a difference, but there are lots of similarities, but of course the seasons are diametrically opposed as well.
Can I
Lamb
ask
is a seasonal product, whereas beef and pork particularly is year round.
Yeah.
Lamb fluctuates throughout the year. Lamb quality fluctuates throughout
Yes.
the year.
Can I ask about that? Because in my head, I'm like, yes, we sell our spring lambs. We lamb early in January. We're catching that, spring lamb market, let's say around April start. But there are lambs being sold in markets all the way through the year. So where does that peak and trough come? Because I can't remember which politician it was, basically said, oh yeah, well, we can just export it when we don't have lamb, which I think was a really damaging comment, because we always have lamb, and I assume you're talking about that quality and age of lamb that differs, and if they're after spring lamb, we can't do that all year round.
Yeah, so what you have for us is that we are net importers of lamb in the first half of any calendar year, and we're net exporters in the second half. So the production cycle goes like that, I think. So we're now heading into our peak export period, which will run up, and peak months are typically August, September, October and into November, and then the numbers drop off again. That's why you see that chain tail level, and you see more New Zealand in the winter and into the early part of the calendar year, and then you see British lamb predominate in the second half of the year. So lamb is the most seasonal production that we have. So our efforts on promoting lamb, and now this is our 6 months of hard yards, if you like, because that's when the product is most available and the price is most acceptable from an export market point of view. But we do produce lamb year round, and we do export lamb year round, and the price product differs throughout the year.
How has our export market? Surely our export market must have increased recently, because like as a we sell lamb, and I'm still selling lamb in late into July, and it's the price is still strong. Like we sent fat lambs last week, and it was £6.10 a kilo dead weight.
We had a very similar question from Kate of Seals Yudu, saying, did the USA recently start importing UK beef? So,
yeah. I mean, the price has been good. I mean, we've got, if we look at our figures for 2022, we've got uplifts in tonnage. So we look at two things: volume and value, and clearly higher value is good, but increasing volume is also good as well. But it isn't just blindly volume. You want to make sure that you get the appropriate price for the product. So trying to drive both. Modest increase in volume, which is good news, but big increase in value, because prices this year have been particularly strong. And in 2022,
because usually it's fallen off by now, and it's dropping a little bit, but it's nothing. 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
And part of that is that things are costing more. Everybody's cost of production, not just here in the UK, has gone up. So protein costs around the world have had that increase, which is why we're having record export business.
Should farmers then, with livestock, have the confidence to increase numbers or maintain numbers? Because across the board we're seeing a lot of you see dispersal sales all over, numbers going down. And I know we're not talking about arable today, but on the arable side of our business, it's a genuine conversation of, do we plant things for next season because the price looks that unviable? Is the export market something which farmers should have enough confidence in? If the domestic market does drop down, are we in a good place?
Yeah, I mean, the point is that if you only have one buyer, you're a price taker. Yeah? And we don't eat carcasses in balance. So, we can sell legs and loins all day long to the UK consumer, but we've got lots of other bits of that carcass to sell as well, including the offal and fifth quarter materials. So what we're trying to do is to make sure we've got a strong domestic market by promoting here at home, the Eat Balance campaign, the campaign around dietary health and iron for certain demographics. We're strongly promoting domestically as a levy payer service and function, but then we're looking to take those other bits of the cost that we don't sell here and make sure we're maximising the value. Unlike lots of industries that take lots of parts and put them together and sell one thing, the meat sector does something completely different. So if you've got 10 things to sell or 100 things to sell, you want the maximum value for everything. And no one buyer premiumises every piece. So you need a choice of buyers to be able to sell all those bits. And you need competition, because if you've got competition, then you've got a genuine market price.
So without the AHDB's influence on exports, would the offal, for instance, still be going places, but we wouldn't be getting a higher value for it? Are you just increasing the value of it, but it'd still go somewhere? Or would it just go to the bin?
There's two things we're doing. So some of it, historically we've struggled to move those products.
Yeah.
And we've had a focus on this for the last 10 or 15 years of opening new markets, particularly in Asia, because their demand for our products is so strong. And we work with industry and government, so genuinely a partnership to explore these export opportunities and open those markets. So our role there for levy payers is to make sure the markets are there, make sure we understand them, so we can capitalise on the opportunity. But also spend the 3, 4, 5 years or more that it takes to have that market open. And it's effectively government are doing the negotiations, probably supported by some industry to get them to that point.
So do you just go out and essentially knock on someone's door and say, hi, we have a UK, we'd like to sell you pickles? Like, how do you go about
I think it's that simple.
Is it that simple? Or is it?
Yeah, that's all you need.
I mean, I think I'm in with a job. I mean, I think I could do this.
I mean, I guess the other side of that is insight and intelligence. Right? So we have a market insight and intelligence team that look at the markets overseas, run consumer surveys, understand what people are willing to prioritise, and where they put their value and where we sit in their hierarchy. And then, of course, we have a network of agents across the country and the team that are travelling to trade shows and events and understanding the buyers and understanding what they want. And clearly, we've got some reports on our website looking at consumer response to UK products. And consumers around the world say, unprompted, they think that UK products are products with integrity, produced with high standards, they're safe to eat, they're quality products, and importantly, they're premium products. Regardless of whether we're talking about fillet steaks or livers, that they're still products they want to buy.
Yeah.
So all that information and insight we share with our processors, so they know that if they're in, let's say if they're in the States, on the West Coast, then it's welfare, high welfare, extensively reared, antibiotic-free products. If they're in China, the story will tell.
The rain is bothering us.
The story we're telling there is about food safety and integrity of products and quality of products. So we use that insight to make sure that we're selling the right message to the market depending on what the market is about.
I know you guys are quite good at valuing yourselves. Do you have a rough idea of how much return you get on every pound that you're putting into, or you're investing into export markets?
Yeah, so in 2021 we did exactly that exercise. We got an external independent organisation in to ask the levy payers what value they got from even processor, dairy and meat processor levy payers, what value they got from participating in the things that we do, the trade shows and the exhibitions and so on. And the answer ultimately was for every £1 of levy money invested, we delivered almost £12 worth of return to the industry.
So that sounds pretty good to us, Farmer. When you talk about it in monetary terms, I'm like, a pound to get
What
12.
to me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing though, isn't it? It's this kind of hidden cost. And I did go to a talk, and a lot of people at the start of this talk saw the levy as basically a tax. And at the end of it, when figures like that are explained, you can see, well, it's more of an investment actually. But you don't know that until you've kind of been delivered that information in some way. And yeah, it's
The
reassuring.
information is there though.
But we're not good at looking
at
at
looking for it.
And we also, as farmers, we also forget that we are really rubbish at marketing ourselves. We are not marketing students or degree holders. Or
Well, I was reading that AHDB, like you've got to get health certificates and all this. It just sounded like a massive minefield being able to export something. So, yeah, is that what takes the time, like trying to tick all these boxes that each country wants?
Yeah, so ultimately when you get, having gone through the negotiations and you have to have an inward inspection here, supported by UK government, when they visit processing sites, they might visit farms. Ultimately, they'll ask for all your documentation. And one of the roles we play as part of the Export Certification Partnership is to make sure that the support the processor businesses in preparing all that documentation to then go back to the overseas authority. And these run to hundreds of pages, and they weigh, in terms of, you know, the box might weigh 7 or 8 kilos of paperwork going back for somebody to pour through them before they say, yes, you've met our requirements and we're willing to issue you with export approval. And then every shipment that goes needs to be signed off by a vet to say it's been produced under the agreed standards, and I'm willing to sign to say that's been achieved, and that's the export health certificate. But every load that leaves the country for an export destination does so with an export health certificate.
There's no farmers that's going to want to fill in 7 kilos worth of paperwork. So, yeah. Rebecca, you recently went to the exports conference. Tell us about what you learned there, what you saw, and build a bit on that, please.
I think so. We've definitely touched on a little bit of it already in terms of not knowing what goes on behind the scenes, and I think we're quite guilty as farmers to say organisations do nothing for us without knowing. And we've talked about the data, the strategy, new markets is absolutely massive.
one thing I also took away, and again, maybe we take for granted that, you know, for example, we would eat our own lamb and we know that it tastes delicious. We know how the standards that we produce that to. But actually, for people from other countries, they genuinely, well, the taste of the product does the talking. And I couldn't get over how many of, your AHDB colleagues who are based in other countries, they were there saying, we just thank British farmers. We are so glad that they give us such a quality product because our job's easy. And that's, I mean, there were so many, it was that I wrote literally like a notepad worth of notes because there was so much to learn. But that's one thing that stood out. People were grateful for the job we do. And sometimes as farmers, we feel undervalued by sometimes even the public, but government as well. And actually, to know that even just a few people from the AHDB think you're doing a good job, I was like, oh gosh, like we might be making a difference. But yeah, a fantastic conference. Got to meet people from, you know, processors to more people from AHDB, and yeah, I just didn't know the scale of it.
Well, tell us a bit about the export strategy and what's happening with that.
Yeah, so we've had an active export program for a long time, you know, and the numbers speak for themselves, and the openings of the new markets to add value and give more sales opportunities. But the levy payer vote from last year, we asked levy payers where they wanted their levy invested, and the international marketing came out very strongly. And it's back to your point, farmers are not really in a position to do that themselves, so they need somebody to do that for them, and that was the message we got from that. So kind of refresh the brief, if you like, to keep pushing these international markets to seek those opportunities. So as a result of that, at the export conference just last month, we launched a kind of revised emboldened export strategy, and it's on the website called Beyond Borders, and essentially we undertook to up the ante on the exports, and that's about supporting processors to make sure they understand the markets with the insight and intelligence, help them prepare the paperwork and go through the audit procedure, keep pushing the European market because it's strong for us while seeking new markets overseas, seek collaborations and partnerships, provide that technical training and support, and have a big trade show program. So we would do almost a couple of dozen international trade shows a year in overseas markets where we have a strong footing. And that, once you get the product there, you get the taste of the product, they understand what we're trying to do and just how good the product is, and that's what creates the sales. So we're all focused now on Nuga, largest food fair in the world, which will be held in Cologne, Germany in October. We'll have a big stand there. We've got 11 co-exhibitors, so UK meat processors that will be there to promote the products. And I'm sure we'll have a very intense 5 or 6 days where we'll have products available for overseas buyers to try. And it's a real platform for what we do, for what you do as farmers. And once people try the product, of course, they want to have that in there.
If you need to wait,
I was going to say,
I was waiting to say about to say. I'm included Joe in this. Like we could wait.
I don't know, we were getting missed out.
So remember to put on comments, the questions that Charlotte asked. Any questions you've got, put it on there. Phil, can you just repeat, if farmers want to know more about our export strategy, repeat where they can find that?
Yeah, so if you Google AHDB Beyond Borders, there's a document in there which sets out the work that we do and the kind of more emboldened work that we're going to continue to do to make sure that we get that return on investment for levy payers and continue to add value to the off-farm livestock.
On your video the other day, you said about a butcher's friend, and how they, so how is that perceived, do you think, in that side of the industries, and a butcher friend that you supply, you say?
Oh, no, I think I was talking about balancing carcasses, wasn't
Yeah.
I? Yeah, I have a friend who is a butcher, and we were talking about the amount of mince that the mince products, and basically Roy was saying to my friend at school, you're really good at making inventive ways to use pulled mince, and she said, well, actually no, because he's very good at balancing the carcass. And I had actually heard that term used ever, because I don't see the end product apart from, if we butcher lamb ourselves. It's not something that I'm aware of until doing any of this. It's not something that had ever even entered my mind, which I know we're having like intense talks about exports and stuff. As a bog standard normal farmer from Cumbria, it's not something that I think about, and I can guarantee it's not something a lot of farmers think about either. So it's quite refreshing to see what's being done to help us, even though we don't know it. Like me and Joe were talking the other day with somebody, weren't we, about something that AHDB had invented to be able to export pig's feet.
Oh, the machine.
Yeah, the machine
That
takes the hair off.
the feet or
Like,
something, yeah.
who invents a machine to take hair off?
Charlie, and you do meat boxes, and you give us a bit of insight on balancing carcass. What do you do with, other than the lady with the jerky hearts? What do you do with those kind of things?
So generally we don't get too much offal backwards. We get the kidneys and the liver. I actually suppose we do. The hearts I'd specifically asked for, and she was thrilled. And then the beef, we get the liver back. Balancing carcass, I think it helps that we do the set boxes. So that's what gets away, because otherwise you would get left with a fair amount of stew beef. And we've got customers that absolutely love that and really want the slow roast joints and the stewing beef and the mince. But otherwise, obviously, things like the fillet and the ribs of beef fly out. Anyone wants those? Anyone wants those? It's probably like 2 beasts a head. But otherwise, it is the boxes is
It
how
does
we
sound,
do it.
it's quite hard work to do it.
It was the first time we did it. It was a bit of a stab in the dark, thinking, are those boxes? Is that going to equate to a whole beast? But now we've done it a few times. You've got your head around it. But yeah, the boxes are the best way because it means that we don't get left with anything.
Yeah.
Do you do recipe cards? Am I right in thinking you do that? Because I think one thing that we have a real, this is slightly going off exports, but obviously we need to keep that domestic market strong as well. People don't know how to cook. And actually, I find it really hard to get inspiration. What on earth am I going to cook for tea tonight? And you just pick the kind of easiest thing. And that doesn't necessarily utilise all the cuts. So I think that recipe card idea is fantastic. And people that quick and easy and take the difficulty out of it.
Yeah, so we do our own recipe cards that, like, my mum's a fantastic cook. So and some of her recipes in there, but there's also a load of HDB ones. So there's the HDB and Red Tractor ones. They're like butchers and farm shop resources, and they do loads of flyers. Like, there's tons out there, so many. I've got so many flyers at home, and they're all recipe cards. Just suit them for the time of year and chuck them in, and they're really helpful. Always feedback on those, and a lot of them are based on less used cuts or leftovers. Like a lot of our home ones are left ones, so because people don't know what to do with leftovers anymore.
Not called the HDB, but it was pulled pork, wasn't it? Was that?
I'm not sure we had that conversation, and somebody claimed we invented it. I'm not sure we invented it, but we heavily promoted it. I think we'll take the credit, and unofficially, Isaac will take the credit, but I think as an organisation we have to put a disclaimer.
I think that's so. I'm not going to claim we invented it because I think others might also claim similar. But it's about the campaigns that we have fit into what's happening in the marketplace. So promoting pulled pork addresses a carcass balance challenge. And when COVID was on, people gravitated to, they were buying whatever they could get their hands on, but there was a glut of steaks because food service restaurants were shut. So we did a Make It Steak campaign to promote steak consumption. And we've also, going back some years, some of the products you see now available in retailers and on restaurant menus, things like flat iron steaks, for example. Again, we're always looking at what other people are doing and what we're doing ourselves. And the flat iron steak was an American kind of reinvention, because there's nothing new in the world, right? These muscles haven't just developed, they've been there for a long time. We were very closely looking at what the US was doing at the time and trying to add value to individual cooks. And fast forward 10 or 15 years, you can go into lots of pub restaurants now, and you can go into retail, and you'll find a flat iron steak.
There's
this is about the flat iron chain in London. Yeah. This is about getting product away from mince and stew into products. That's a slow cooking muscle, really, because it is in a block of muscle. If you take that muscle off and prepare it in a certain way, it's second only to the fillet. So it's more tender than sirloin, better than rump, etc., etc. But you have to be very precise in how you prepare it. You put it in a slow roast, it's worth X a kilo.
Yeah.
You take it off, you treat it properly, prepare it properly, and it's worth X and a half. You know, adding value individually.
We had a comment from David Mortram on the AHDB
YouTube.
saying love oxtail, liver,
Yeah.
kidney, but his kids won't eat it. Maybe we should have a fast food restaurant selling just offal. There's a niche market for somebody there.
I think
Some
it's going to need a
entrepreneur.
catchy name.
Offal burger. An offal burger.
An
Does
awful.
oxtail soup actually tastes like oxtail? I always wondered.
I like oxtail soup.
I love oxtail soup,
It's a
but does
beefy,
it
soupy,
taste
beefy, soupy broth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got strong beef
Going
flavour.
back to your offal burger, that still sounds more appealing to me than the muck plants.
Yeah, it does.
You know, I'll take it. McDonald's, you heard it here first.
Other brands are available. On AC YouTube, Jonathan asked about an AI able to speed up the paperwork.
Yeah, so there's a move towards electronic health certificates, pre-notifications, and so on. You know, we're exploring that and working with government and industry. That's the future. We'll get there, but you've got to be able to produce it, and a country's got to be willing to accept it. But there is a wider movement around the world, because moving paper around today is slow and laborious, and arguably there are other ways, but you still need that. You still need a system so that it is the product certified by a licensed and approved official veterinary surgeon.
Everything's different as well, isn't it? So I was speaking to a guy from the USA on that talk, and the way that meat is classified
Yeah.
is completely different here to what it was in his home country. So he was like, "Well, what's a Europe grid like?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "We get, I think it was like
Prime,
Prime,
yeah.
choice, and select.
Yeah,
that's it.
Like that.
Yeah. So across the world, there are different classifications or grading systems. So you have to translate what that means. What's if they think Prime's the best, which they do in the US, how does our product compare to Prime, and how do they seek to source product that is equivalent to or does something similar to the product they're used to?
So
So
that
you have to take
must
some
be
time.
quite difficult, because like Europe's just like based on the conformation of the animal,
Yeah.
whereas the prime that he was talking about was like you're looking at the actual meat itself.
Yeah, that's
It must be
right.
really hard to like
It's like
try and
marbling and stuff as
Yeah.
well.
yeah.
So the
It was like-
US system selects for marbling,
Yeah.
whereas you say Europe is about lean meat yield. You know, it's confirmation of fact.
And I also asked the same guy, which was there for the conversation, and I said about we send our animals in to kill at a certain size so that we can fit into a package, for instance. The bigger the better. Like there was no, he said no, they want bigger and bigger. There wasn't any, fit into, 34 kilos or whatever.
Yeah.
And US beef carcasses are in the UK average. But I mean, what is really striking is US lamb weights. So they talk in pounds, but we'll convert that. What do you reckon a US average weight of a US lamb carcass is? Bearing in mind our normal spec is about 18 to 21
So
kilos.
there's going to ask, what's the 18 to 20 kilos?
Yeah. Are you going to say something like 30 kilos or
Yeah,
something?
it's gonna be really big.
35 kilos.
Wow.
For a
And it's not,
carcass.
and it's not surprising to see
That's even
carcasses
bigger than my sheep.
40
Yeah.
or 45
Yeah, imagine what it's
kilos.
gone
Never mind a lamb, that's a full-grown sheep.
So, if you've got an animal that's 12 or 15 months old, that's 35 kilo carcass weight, and a loin that's this wide, as a loin chop, that's a mature, lamb product. Compare that to our young lamb, grass reared, produced at this time of year. Not surprising they go, wow, that's good.
Yeah.
It is.
Can I ask a question going back to the vet certificates?
Mm.
And it relates to on social media at the moment there's so much about TB, and I'm just kind of referring back to obviously we have the chief vet at the export conference that I went to, and there was a lot of talk about vaccination, things like that, and how do vaccinations here on our livestock, which obviously for the welfare of the animals, then impact on that certificate for exporting.
So part of those discussions and negotiations across a whole range of things, you have to have agreements on certain issues, and T would be one example. So you have to have a certificate that you need, that you're selling those products to, or they're importing, their government's willing to accept. So TB is ones where we have on the beef side, long discussions with import in terms of seeking approval about what standards they expect the UK to adhere to of products that are eligible for exports. And TB is just one example, because you have to demonstrate how you control all animal health risks. If you're an overseas government official, you're agreeing to approve the UK to export anything, you've got two real things that you need to be convinced of. If I import this product, does it put my consumers' health at risk? Does it make anybody ill? But importantly, is it going to impact or affect the health of the livestock in the country? So you have to make sure that you can convince them and demonstrate that you've got the necessary controls in place.
Just had a message in Speak Up, and because the rain is affecting that.
Do we probably, I don't know, do we want to talk about? Do we get much kickback from the FC still?
Controlled risk status. So there's negligible risk, which countries like Australia and New Zealand are negligible risk because they haven't had the disease risk. And lots of countries have got negligible risk status. Lots of countries have got controlled risk status. It's not about have you had it, yes or no. It's about how do you manage the risk of BSE, and we're able to demonstrate repeatedly to incoming officials that audit our process. We have a procedure in place that measures, monitors, and reports the risk and reports any disease incidents. So you have to demonstrate you've got robust controls, because the world isn't free, obviously. So it's about demonstrating that you can control that risk. Our ambition in the next couple of years is to achieve negligible risk status as we move further and further away. But all the beef access we've got at the moment is demonstrated that we recognise as a risk, and we've got all the necessary procedures in place to control and minimise that risk.
I've had quite a few questions come in. It wasn't just these guys that were excited about the international trade shows. Just tell us quickly which other countries and shows do we do? How many do we do a year?
It's a big list. So a couple of dozen a year. So European trade shows. So things like Cologne, Anuga in Cologne, Halal in Paris. They're the big European shows, and they happen on alternate years. We do All Food in Dubai, Foodex in Japan, Restaurant and Bar in Hong Kong, the Philippines, some more challenging destinations like West Africa, etc. US and Canada, they're also destinations that we're in. So Middle East is a big opportunity as well. So we have 20 to 24 key international trade events across the globe in the markets that we're most interested in, where the greatest opportunities are.
Can see your careers section of AHDB just export division, any jobs?
I should just mention
I'll be applying.
I speak 6 or 7 languages, so I think
You're winning.
Listen, on my CV, I've got a GCSE in maths. So let's not just go that.
Right, you mentioned Middle East there, so I know some of the inbound were UAE. So let's talk a bit about halal, because that's a big part of what we do as well.
Yeah, sure. So Middle East region generally import vast quantities of food because they're not big producers of most things themselves. Lambs are a highly sought after premium product in the country, desired by the largely Muslim population that are there, but of course it needs to be halal certified, approved, so that they can consume it. So when we're looking to grow our lamb exports, said Europe's really important, but those growers, particularly the Middle East, with their big populations, relatively wealthy, high-end food service restaurants in all those nice hotels in Dubai, for example, want to have a premium offer, and that's also we'll be at Gulf Food in Dubai to promote principally lamb to a food service hotel trade in the Middle East region, because it's of growing importance for them. lamb sector.
Can I very quickly jump in? Can we also just confirm that halal does, because I think it's still a massive
I was just about to say that.
halal does not mean non-stun.
Yeah.
So there'll be a lot of people out there thinking halal taboo. Like, it's not. Halal does not mean non-stun.
Yeah. So from a halal point of view, there's stun and non-stun product. There's more stun product than non-stun, and it's about consumer choice. We export products, but we also consume halal products here in the UK. But you're right, halal's a broad term for products produced in a certain way, and of course there are different methods within the halal broader
all of our lambs, our fat lambs, they all go to an abattoir, and it's all sort of pre-stunned halal abattoir.
Yeah.
So
so
obviously we know, like, now all about this. Is there anywhere normal farmers can go to educate themselves on
My
this
Instagram.
matter? Yeah, exactly. But I know it's a
Pretty
massive
hot
thing.
on that.
And I know a lot of people near us as well, like, your bog standard normal farmer, they are not educated in this matter at all,
And
and they
they're
automatically go, oh, this is terrible, and it's not.
But it
necessarily
turns into a problem, because then people are anti-halal, and that turns into an anti-religion problem. And it's not. That's the big problem.
There's a big part of what we try and do. We've got Owls and working specifically in that, and I think he spoke at the conference.
He's absolutely fantastic, and
He
I
was
think
on the top.
and he talks in a very matter-of-fact way, very objectively, because halal's a very emotive subject. As I said, farmers are genuinely worried because we feel like we've protected our livestock from the moment it's born or the moment we buy it onto farm, all the way through to whether we take it to market or the abattoir. And I've definitely heard farmers say, oh, well, I've got cull ewes to take, and I drop them at market, and I hope they don't go halal, because they're worried about the non-stunnerment. Well, the chances of non-stunner are actually very small. And so the worry is there, and he speaks absolutely fantastically, and there's some good documents, and the risk of being like, a very like AHDB plug again, the documents that are produced, and also halal and around religious festivals as well, and timing selling and producing what those religious festivals want. They're really like a genuinely, I'm not going to say a good read, but an interesting read.
I think farmers do need to realise that if it wasn't for the Muslim community, there would be no lamb in the country. There would be no point in doing it. It's such a big thing.
I mean, we've spent a long time looking at the halal market and its growth potential, both domestically and overseas. And we did a piece of work some time ago looking at what the consumption levels were. So the average consumption level per person of lamb is about 30 kilos a year. Muslim population, it's in excess of 20 kilos.
Yeah.
So let's be absolutely clear. The Muslim population are very important to the sheep sector, and the export opportunity for lamb into Muslim markets is going to be important, increasingly important going forward.
And I think I'm right in saying that if it's red tractor farm assured, you can be assured that it's stunned pre-slaughter.
Correct.
So even if it's halal, if it's red tractor, it is stunned. So
We're coming closer to an end, but we had a really interesting discussion beforehand about another product, and that was leather. So,
That was interesting.
Joe, you enjoyed that?
We started off with Rebecca's chairs, to be fair.
Oh, the cowhide.
That's where it started.
Really?
and then
Yeah.
Joe started talking about his Louis Vuitton bags.
So tell us a bit more about leather.
Yeah, so hides and skins are an important byproduct of the slaughter process, and again, a lot of those are exported. We don't have a huge amount of tanning capacity in the UK. They're exported. Sheepskins go to principally to China and to kind of India and African countries. Bovine leather or hides also largely get exported, although there is some tanning capacity here in the UK for beef hides. It adds, it adds value to the carcass. It has a value, and of course, if you didn't have a market or leather wasn't in demand around the world, it would be an issue to dispose of it, because there's a collagen. Leather's essentially just simply collagen. It doesn't degrade, and they still dig up leather rents from thousands of years ago. So imagine the environmental challenge of that. So a strong demand for leather products is also important as part of the whole sustainability for livestock
I
production.
suppose, whilst not maybe adding much value, but will it be the same leather products?
Yeah, in essence, the wool market's always a bit of a struggle in terms of its value or the value add, but of course, if there's a market and an outlet for it, creating some of those products, so, high quality natural products.
Yeah.
Right. We'll come to a close, and I'll if you've still got time, then I'll go through the questions, put them on the AHDB
YouTube, of course.
comments, and we'll go through them. If I ask my glamorous assistant to hold up the prize, please.
It's
yes,
been cut
the
between his
chalice.
legs most of the session.
That's probably
It's added value. That's added value.
So we'll go through those, but so the first question, I'll ask the questions this time because you've got to guess. So higher or lower, the GB red meat export were 1.5 billion pounds in 2022. So Rebecca, what do you think, higher or lower?
I can't remember whether it was 1.2. I'm going to go higher. I'm going to.
Charlie?
Yeah, I've got 1.6 in mind, but higher. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to have to be higher, isn't it?
I've made that up.
Oh, yeah. We're all just throwing around numbers now.
Yeah.
Higher.
Take a guess. Dr. Phil.
I don't know the answer. You're the oracle.
I think I might win this
I
one.
was like, I hope you know this. I know you don't
not
know
a guess.
It was in 2022. The value of red meat exports was 1.76 billion.
Oh, we combined it.
I knew there was a 6 in there
That's
somewhere.
that's a big number, and that really tells you, why we're focused on it.
Yeah, 1.76 billion pounds in 1 year. That's a big number. The second one were beef over here is worth £5 for a tongue roughly. In a Japanese supermarket, your average supermarket, what do you think it costs? And then think Harrods. What do you think a beef tongue could cost in a Harrods in Japan? Not the Harrods specifically, but that type.
I might just go silly and be like £100 and £200 in equivalent.
Wow.
Some of the things are
Who's got the money?
crazy. Some of the things are crazy though, aren't they? And if it's a delicacy,
There's a lot of tongues
We
out.
go
Like a tenner and 10,
Yeah, I was
10
going
and
to
20.
say, yeah.
We're a bit different on this one.
10 or 20?
Right. Yeah.
Right, well, I'll go like 15 and 30 then.
No, I'm going with Rebecca. I think really obviously
Not moral
high.
support there.
I'm with you.
You know who your friends are, don't you?
So typically here that it's about £5 a kilo. In Japan at retail, it's kind of £40 or £50 a kilo, but I've seen it as high as £100 a kilo.
I promise I have researched that.
Nice.
But they buy it in very small quantities, a few hundred grams, because in Japan they pay high price, but they're not huge. They don't sit down to large Wagyu steaks or tongue pieces. They sit down to relatively small portions, but they pay very strong money. The same supermarket had a pack of 6 strawberries for £200. Very beautiful strawberries they were.
Yeah, but they're still
expensive
strawberries, sure.
They're a strawberry.
And a single melon for the same £200. So that
The
gives
Japanese
you
have got too much money by the
some
sounds of it.
idea
Wow.
of the willingness to spend
I
for
think
the
I
right
should set up a
products.
market stall. I mean, I am in the wrong job.
Right, third question were how many tons of offal, that is liver, heart, pig pizzles, we figured out what that is, Joe, were exported to China. So how many tons of offal were exported to China in 2022? So just
Charlotte this time.
right. Let's make it fair.
Like 100 million tons.
That would be
You've overcooked that.
I'm going big. I'm going big.
She was going to wait for everybody else in. I'll just go what they say. So
You haven't actually
No,
made it
no,
easier.
there'll be I think it'll be at least 3 million tons more, maybe. It's a lot of
I'm
offal.
thinking that I read this last night.
Oh,
So if I
Joe.
get this
Yeah,
There
but
you go.
You weren't meant to revise.
Yeah, I know. I didn't revise.
1.2 or 1.8
Million.
tons, yeah.
1.5.
Oh, I
You
was
need
going-
to
I
get
was
out
too
more,
high.
Joe.
I do, don't I?
I'm
If
gonna
I've got
go
this right, I definitely do.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm going to go for 1.5.
I was going to go for like 20,000.
There's just tons, remember? So
Yeah, this is tons. This is a lot of products.
yeah.
Imagine
Yeah.
how
Oh,
many, like,
yeah.
But
Oh,
tons
yeah,
of.
maybe I
Yeah.
got this wrong.
Yeah, not 1.5 tons. I went
Not
1.5
100
million.
million.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's in there, 1 ton of offal would be a fairly big chunk in itself.
Oh, yeah.
It would be quite a large, ton.
So now you've grossly overestimated it. This is going to
Wow.
in 2022. Offal in its broadest category, which are all those fifth quarter byproduct type items that we've touched on, we exported 69,000 tonnes of pork offal to China, and it had a value of £108 million sterling. Just think about, if you didn't have those much available, there's very little domestic demand for those types of products. Which
£108
underlines-
million pound.
So we were
underlines
sorry,
we were
I thought it was
estimating more
the-
awful than
Well,
In my
animals.
defence,
and
I
carcasses.
was thinking back to the time when
You
I
were
actually
thinking
did
pounds.
butcher cow and tried to lift.
We
the
didn't
bits of
realise it was
into a
just
bucket.
pork.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
no. I
sorry.
blame it on that.
And you were thinking of pounds, so 1.8 million
Yeah,
pounds.
I was.
Not tons.
I need to go back to school to start
LBs.
to read again, I think.
You have a degree
I know, I don't know where that's gone.
in what? Geography.
Geography.
I know, right?
Oh. Right, so just a very quick final sort of sentence or thoughts from you. I'm going to start with Joe this time and then go around. So about some whole exports thing, something you found interesting or...
Just like how there's that many different cultures in the world that eat completely different things to us, and I don't know, what would it be like if there weren't all those different cultures that would eat something a bit different? We'd have like loads of cow's tongues and pig pizzles to dump
I know what
somewhere.
one is.
It wouldn't be turkey to us, it would be piggy pigs. I'm here all night, guys. Sorry.
Right.
Sorry.
Watch out for next week's meat boxes.
Let's wrap this up.
I think for me it was kind of the extent that AHDB, like I didn't realise you've got people all over the world. I thought AHDB was just here. I didn't realise you've got the offices everywhere and we're putting so much in. Well, I knew you were putting a lot into it, but
There's more to HB than just Isaac.
yeah, there's more foreign than just Isaac.
Rebecca.
I think as farmers we worry about trade because we think of the negativities of trade deals, but trade isn't just importing what we deem as lower standard products. The export side of trade is absolutely vital, and we have to consider trade as a we imports and exports have to go hand in hand. Absolutely.
Excellent.
Just being very confident in our own product and realising that just because we take it for absolute granted that, you know, this is what we produce and it's perfectly normal for me to be Rebecca and say, oh, your lambs are looking stunning, etc., etc. It's not necessarily the case everywhere, and I think just seeing the value that we actually do have is very important.
Phil, your final message to people listening?
Well, I hope what's come over in the last hour is just how important exports are to the process of levy pays. Of course, we're dealing with them all the time to create opportunity, significant value to the sector. Levy payers recognise that in the vote. The levy money investment on behalf of levy, find as many opportunities as possible to add value to the whole animal to make sure that we can keep the sector viable and deliver that return on investment.
And I'll just have the message through. So congratulations to Kate on Joe's YouTube, who guessed 2 of the 3 right. She only got the last one incorrect with 130. So Kate, we'll give Joe an email, and if you can email Mark on that email, we'll get the mug sent out to you. So we'll get that sorted. So well done. Thank you, Kate. That just leaves me to say thank you to everybody that's listened, putting in the questions, taking part. Thank you to all of these guys. So we'll go around very quickly, just remind us of who you are. Charlie, I'm going to start with you this time.
Well, thanks for giving me an easy question. I'm Charlie, and I'm on Instagram as Charlie Farms or Facebook as Meriden Farm.
Rebecca Wilson 722 on Instagram.
Joe Seals, joeseals.com.
Charlotte Ashley Farms on YouTube and everything.
Excellent. Thank you very much for listening.
Perfect.
Thank you very much for all of these guys for taking part. Thank you very much for the Wilsons for hosting us tonight, and it's been absolutely brilliant.
Fabulous steak.
Fabulous
Oh, good
steak.
steak.
Yeah, very,
Beautiful,
very.
beautiful sunshine.
Yeah, look
at it.
You
looked at it. Look
We
at
should have
it.
started later, shouldn't we?
Yeah, anybody watching? Look at this behind us now. No, you're not coming on.
You want to get-
Just a late arrival.
So, thank you very much. If you want to find out more about an AHDB agri-leader that we're part of, or Beyond Borders, go and have a Google. And there's tons of stuff. Thanks for all the plugs. So, thank you very much, and we're off. Cheers. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.